Today, an international United Nations staff member was killed in Gaza, in Rafah to be exact. Rafah, of course, is a border town in Gaza that is very much at play right now, considering the fact that Israel wants to carry out a ground invasion, and the United States has temporarily halted weapons shipments to Israel over its disagreement with Israel doing a ground invasion there. Now, the UN staff member and others were traveling in a car that was marked with the United Nations flag. Just like the humanitarian aid workers for the World Central Kitchen were in a convoy of trucks that were clearly marked with World Central Kitchen. And of course, they were hit with 3 back-to-back drone strikes, killing 7 people. Now, this incident that happened today marks the first death of an international UN staff worker since the beginning of the war in Gaza. Now, the story just broke, and I'm sure more details will develop in coming days. But here's what we know for now, based on what we're hearing from Farhan Haq, who is the deputy spokesman for the United Nations Secretary General. He told the Washington Post that the following. So Haq confirmed that the staff member was the first international UN casualty since the beginning of the war on October 7th. The name and nationality of the staff member have not been released. The United Nations did not say who they believed was responsible for the attack. And I think that is the responsible thing to do. This just happened, and so there should be at least a little bit of an investigation before they place blame. We can speculate though. Now, Haq also told the Washington Post that we informed the Israeli side of the movement of our convoys. They are all clearly marked UN vehicles. I'm not surprised by that. That is what we've heard from humanitarian aid workers that have been targeted by Israeli defense forces. And so here you have a UN truck that was clearly marked. The Post reports that the vehicle had UN lettering on the truck and front doors. You're looking at the truck with the bullet holes as we speak. And there's also a UN flag posted above the gas hub. Now, another UN staffer was also injured in the attack. They're currently receiving medical treatment. According to the Washington Post, video footage captured in front of the emergency department of the European hospital, where the injured UN worker is reportedly receiving medical treatment, showed the aftermath of Monday's attack. Bullet holes, as you all saw from the video, are visible in the rear windows of the vehicle. Now, Haq has called for a full investigation into the incident, and I think that full investigation absolutely needs to happen. Again, I wanna make sure you know, we don't know for sure who did this attack. But let's hear from the IDF. They've responded to questions, and they say that an initial inquiry indicates that the vehicle was hit in an area declared an active combat zone. Said a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces, who added that the IDF had not been made aware of the route of the vehicle. The spokesperson said the incident is under review. Now, this is very similar to what we've heard from the IDF in other incidents where innocent people have been killed, including humanitarian aid workers and journalists. And so you should take what they're claiming here with a grain of salt. But I do think the words combat zone should spark some memories of stories we've done recently, because remember, Haaretz, an Israeli publication, had reported some weeks ago that the IDF kills any living thing that enters an active combat zone, but they don't tell anyone where the active combat zones are. And so innocent civilians might enter a combat zone unwittingly and they get killed immediately. And so hearing the IDF refer to this area as an active combat zone concerns me. So Waz, I'm curious what you think about this story. Obviously, it's still developing and we don't know for sure who carried out this attack, but recent history might give us some reason to believe that it could be the IDF.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth, as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
However you feel about the war, whether you think it's justified, if you're like, pro-Israeli regime, and you think how they're prosecuting the war is justified or not, whatever side of that you're on, I don't think there's any reading of how they've prosecuted this war as them being precise or discerning or like anything but brutal and indiscriminate. Like the idea that you could kill aid workers, you're killing UN workers. It just shows that like the way that you're going about prosecuting this thing just doesn't take anything that we would call humanity and being humane into consideration. It just doesn't feel that way. And I think that's what people are bumping up against when it's like, yo, why is our government basically giving them a blank check to prosecute this war with our tax dollars and helping them commit what a lot of people think, a lot of smarter people than me think are war crimes. And this incident just falls right in line with that train of thought for me. It just feels like what they're doing over there is just completely brutal, and like they're taking no prisoners, and it's awful. And I don't know how you see a war like this get carried out against the people and not think it's pretty messed up. Like, yeah, like you don't even have to have a politics about it. It's like the way they're doing it seems just so awful.
I mean, I just put aside where anyone falls on whether they consider themselves Zionists, whether they support the formation of Israel or not. That actually doesn't really matter when you're analyzing what's happening on the ground in Gaza right now. Even the most ardent Israel supporter, can they really say that the way the IDF has carried out this war is just? Can they really, with a straight face, allege that this is the most moral military that is going to extreme lengths to protect civilian lives? I mean, over 100 journalists dead, killed in Gaza. Most of them Al Jazeera journalists. And at the same time, Israel has just banned Al Jazeera from operating overall in Israel, banned. And so you want me to believe that over 100 journalists who were killed in Gaza were killed accidentally, really? And if that's the case, could it be that maybe dropping 2,000-pound bombs in a densely populated area isn't the best way to carry out this war so you prevent the loss of civilian lives? I'm not a military expert, but I would venture to say that the 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs were not appropriate for Gaza. But it was an easy solution if you want to minimize the number of, soldiers dying on the IDF side and maximize damage in Gaza, make it uninhabitable, right? Just level residential areas, level refugee camps, level the hospitals, level the, it goes on and on. The hospitals, the mosques, the churches, there was a Greek Orthodox church that was bombed. It just goes on and on and on. And so when you see Americans start to speak up, it's not necessarily because they're against Israel. It's because they don't feel comfortable seeing their hard-earned tax money fund a war that they might have felt would be just in the beginning, but now feel is deeply unjust given how careless the IDF has been with civilian lives, with the lives of humanitarian aid workers, with the lives of journalists, with the lives of, and now we're hearing about UN workers getting killed. It's insanity. So for me, like the debate about Zionism or no Zionism, that's kind of in the periphery. The moment that we're experiencing right now in Gaza and the way the war has been carried out in Gaza, I want to ask the people who are ardent supporters of Israel, are you okay with this? And do you really genuinely think this is just? And if they do, man, they've got those blinders on, because I would venture to say that if Russia was doing the exact same thing and killing as many civilians in a short period of time like the IDF has, they'd speak up. And they'd have deep concerns about it. But for some reason, there's a double standard that I don't really understand. And they can't really explain it, so they just shout you down and accuse you of being an anti-Semite. Like, it's just ridiculous.
And by the way, Israel's a sovereign country, pretty wealthy country. If they want to prosecute a war against their neighbors in a far off land, that's their prerogative. I don't think it, like, if we went to war with Mexico tomorrow, there's not a country on earth that could tell us, oh, you need to stop. Like, you can't do that. Like, it kind of just be what we were doing, right? Like, all right, cool, carry out your war, but why should American people be paying for a foreign war? It doesn't make any sense. Like, look, one, I think the Israeli regime is doing generally what their population wants. Their people are with them on this. So I think that's something that people on the left don't like to readily admit, but it's like, bro, like they're responding to the wants of their people. And you might say, hey, those people are like really bloodthirsty right now in a very vulnerable moment for them post October 7th. Sure, you can make that argument, but the bottom line is this war is popular in Israel. And so, like, again, like, to me, it's just like, all right, these folks should be able to carry out their popular war. Go ahead. But again, I don't understand why our country should be footing the bill, why our country should be doing so much of the heavy lifting on this thing. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of Americans feel the way that you're feeling right now. And by the way, Israel in 2022 had an economic surplus. Did you know that? I didn't know that until this weekend.
I did not know that.
2022, their government put out a report, a statement. They're like, oh, we're killing it. We're killing it. And it's like, we've had a deficit since 2001. What are we doing? Why are we giving Israel aside from this war and the additional military funding we've provided Israel during this war, we've been giving them $4 billion a year in foreign aid. They had a surplus in 2022. Now that's been reversed because of the war, but man, I don't think most Americans know that. I think most Americans think of Israel as like this small, weak, defenseless little country that.
But that's the propaganda, though.
It is.
And of course, it's the little country that could, amongst all of these, terrible Arab neighbors. They're the only democracy. Their neighbors hate them, even though they're in league with the Saudis, even though the UAE is their people's, even though Egypt has been, basically like made up with these guys decades ago. But that's part of the propaganda. It's this little country that could, and not a really rich and prosperous country who has the backing of the greatest empire in the history of humanity. Okay?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
And Netanyahu dropped the ball on October 7th, okay? Why was Hamas able to do what it did for 6 hours without a response from the IDF? Okay, it's just, is he gonna take any personal responsibility for how badly he failed Israelis? No, he'll never do that. It's gross. All of it is gross, and it's really sad to see it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.